and I would give it to them.
Okay, and with that, we're going to be heading over to our casting duo, and a man who's not only smarter than me, not only a better host than me, but now has to prove that he's a better play-by-play caster than me. We're, of course, talking about Your Way. Take it away.
Okay. I guess I have to do it all now. No, of course, it's Rebel with me. Rebel stepping into the play-by-play more and more now, and I'm so happy to have him at my side. Rebel, welcome to the caster desk.
Disrespectful, man. Disrespectful. I mean, I already have to carry the burden of being more attractive than Milky, let alone all those other things, and he's just going to sit here and disrespect me. I command more respect than that, Yo. I demand it.
I'll see to it. I'll see to it that he respects you more next time.
Okay.
We'll initiate measures to ensure that.
Yeah, it's bold words coming out of somebody who didn't know what range was walking into today. As we've actually got a couple of members of Cerberus actually walking in as B actually got away with murder right there.
Why did Ronopi step to the side there?
He must have just not been paying attention in the slightest. He must have just stepped out of the brush, and that had to be it. Because otherwise, I don't know why he would not have gone for a hook right there on the lane invade. Like, that was the whole intention behind the plan. And yet, there it was. B just gets to walk out for free.
Ooh, that could cost them quite a bit of opportunity, because that early flash on Renata after all the Renata nerfs, she's actually quite a squishy champion. She's now truly just another enchanter, so it's pretty easy to kill her in the early game. Auto attack reset on Sivir, Q, all the damage from Nautilus. At a Drakthar early gank, that's a good opportunity, so that's thwarted now, but he still has to flash him, so might die.
To the bottom side, B is going to go down just as fast as possible. They didn't even need the invade to go over. His style is going to try to turn it onto Artemis. He's going to get locked out by Rono. B step back in, and it doesn't happen! Cerberus walk away with 2 kills to kick off the game.
And the whole analyst desk was just set up to talk about the bot lane and how they're not as successful as in Winter Split. Well, they've come to play today, that's for sure. B, well, B hasn't played against Ronopi Artemis in quite some time, so he doesn't know how strong they are and how well they can play together. Instant cleanse on the Ignite, also quite interesting from Artemis there, to make sure they can actually continue the fight, and then almost a double kill, but 2 kills over to Artemis Ronopi.
I'm just dumbfounded about the start to this game already from B. He almost got hooked to start things off inside of that top rush.
He had to make sure.
There, yeah, he did. And then just standing there at the front of the lane trying to harass like he's like Tarek or something, trying to get a stun off to start off the early game alongside the Zeri is just... Man, I don't know what that was, but it's a fantastic... So you can see it's already like 1,000 gold lead from GAM just to kick this game off from that advantage held on the bottom side.
Yeah, and that's what Cerberus wants to look at. I wanted to actually look into the stats that the analyst desk was discussing, because I had the suspicion that maybe Artemis is getting a little bit too much flack.
Yeah.
True, his laning stats aren't as great anymore. That's definitely true, and some of that is also Ronopi not quite hitting the same form as in Winter. But I actually looked at some of his other stats, and he has the highest DPM, by far higher than OG, by the way, which is quite surprising, because OG was literally 1v9ing. He has the highest... what's the number called? The damage share, I believe.
Damage share, yeah.
And he also has the highest gold share. So they definitely still know where their bread is buttered. They know it's all Artemis, and he's still performing. Maybe not quite to the Winter standard, but he's still definitely the hyper carry they want him to be. So that's a start they can work from.
Oh. Okay. Yeah, to me, quite a bit of it has been, it feels actually like Artemis has never really truly picked up Zeri the way that he needed to, but ever since Sivir has been involved, I feel like Artemis has definitely improved playing the Sivir pick and a couple of other things. It feels like the matchup is slowly getting better. And this is the pick that I talked about this on the last time that I was on cast and on desk and such, that I think this is the champion that Artemis should be piloting as much as possible. So when our desk talked about not only the matchup being better, but also this is, to me, comfort for Artemis inside of a matchup like this, inside of any bot lane type thing, is Drakthar kind of just pokes his head into bottom side. He realizes, I think, that Levi was in river, just wants to make sure that there's no potential for any sort of shenanigans to happen on bottom side, as both teams are putting at least a couple of chips into this arena down here, leaving both the solo lanes to their own devices.
In the meantime, top lane is struggling. Pun not really able to get away with a free laning phase in the top lane. He's going to pick up half a wave right now, hitting his tower, so that's a very cool interaction. I like to see that. But Levi's still around, so if Cerberus overextends on this counter push, they might be punished. No flash on Artemis, no cleanse either, so he's under a lot of threat here.
Not dumping W yet either. He saved it until he only had the 3 minions left, so he could try to hold the wave in position pretty well. And I could appreciate that from Artemis because he thinned it well enough that they can actually hold yet another freeze if they wanted to with the wave where it's at. And I think Levi realized this was an exercise in futility. And so he ends up just leaving, going to take the rest of his camps. It does buy Drakthar a quicker path to top lane if he wants to try to make something happen up here where Pun, he's piloting the Ornn, but at minimum, if you can set him up for success, maybe against Kiaya, it's a good thing. Kiaya has had some solid performances. Pun has looked rough over the course of the split. He's still this weak side, but he no longer has the ability to just tank anything like he did in winter. Instead, it seems like he's a little bit out of at least that arena for himself. Maybe this is some assistance that Drakthar can provide to the top lane, buy him a little bit of breathing room.
Yeah, I think we're in the calm before the storm, because both mid lane is the level 6 now, so it's time to roam, it's time to start these plays. Neither jungler has really found an early gank, and both would have been capable, especially the Jin Zhao, of course, but now, combined with Taliyah roaming potential, combined with Karti on... I mean, Karti was also in contention to be one of the best Vexes in the league. Remember when, in winter he was smurfing every single game on this champion, so it's another really good Vex player coming in here. That's probably also one of the reasons why both Saigon Buffalo and GAM in particular want to go for Vex, because both of the mid laners are amazing at this champion, so I expect a lot of action to be coming, maybe once the Rift Herald spawns, but GAM seems to want to take matters into their own hands. Levi's only 5 though. They get the jump on Yado, they probably kill him. Oh,
okay. Nothing gonna happen right here. It's just getting shut out. I love the attempt though, because Levi and Kadi, if they find that, it's a very low risk, high reward type situation where if they kill off Yado, they can immediately go for the dragon. They've got numbers advantage, and that's a lot stronger as of this patch to be able to use in a one-off type situation to set up for your scaling and everything else. Not to mention it closes off Yado from the rest of the game. The damage is there. There's absolutely no mistaking that at the moment for Kadi, but don't find the play onto Yado. Bottom side protected. The push from bottom lane also is going to defend the dragon, so there's no play to be had. Instead, just a little bit of fishing from GAM that doesn't work out.
Yeah, and Taliyah is actually in a really awkward spot here. If you look at the other champions in this game, almost everyone can jump over walls. The only one that's really susceptible to being trapped under a wall or behind a wall is maybe B, but B has flash again, so he's kind of a hard target to shoot for. And then on the other side we have Kiaya. It's really risky to jump onto Kiaya when your top lane has an Ornn, because he can probably just ignore the Ornn and kill you and turn on you. Then he can also just jump over your wall. Then the same is true on the other side for Zeri. Zeri actually gets better against walls, so the wall actually counterproductive there. So yeah, not the greatest Taliyah setup for Yado. He might have to just wait and scale to be a little bit of counter-engage into the likes of Levi and even Karti later on in the game.
This is also, I love the mid lane matchup in this game because there was a time and a place where these two were far and away considered our best mid laners by a significant margin. I know we've always talked about the mid pool having some weakness to it. I don't think that's disputable really, even to this day. I think it's still a bit of a problem that's held inside of the VCS. But these two are always the more standard mage type players. I've always been excited about Yado picking up Taliyah as a potential. And when it became meta, I knew he was going to be the first to grab it. As we set up for a fight, Taliyah's a little ways out. He might have to ult into this fight. Does have his ghost back as he burned it a little bit earlier on in the laning phase. As
what is this?
Yato's going to cut off to the right. They're going to find Kadi immediately, and he's just going to get brought down. They're going to then blitz in as fast as possible. As Pun's going to throw the ultimate, going to find immediately Levi just to make sure that the Wukong's going to get punished, gets knocked up. They do get the Rift Herald. Levi has to flash to try to get out, but it seems like Yato should have the movement speed with Ghost to be able to catch him right there. He's going to turn back in, but Yato's going to pick up the kill as Cerberus opt for the fight and end up winning it in pretty convincing fashion.
Proactive Cerberus, we haven't seen this in ages. Cerberus actually with a really, really strong early game plan, and what a cool attempt there to not run straight into the Rift Herald, as Pun really needs to run for his life. No, run a piece here, so you should be fine. But instead of turning to the Rift Herald and flipping it in a 4v4, they just cut off to Karti instantly. Really cool play. I love these kind of adaptations. And actually Cerberus was one of the teams back in Winter Split that did this a lot. First Herald, they didn't traditionally swap their top lane into their bot lane into top side. Instead, they always try to find this angle, this one kill.
Sorry, picture-in-picture almost got us a kill.
Artemis.
But it seems like that's not going to be the case. Artemis trying to flex on style just a little bit, but it's not going to happen. But like you said, yeah, it's been a far cry since we've really seen the Cerberus of old. Even in the previous split, they were just completely lost. And when we walked into this split, again, my opinion was that the addition of Drakthar is a replacement for Ego, which was the team, of course, that took that winter split. And maybe it's not a perfect comparison, maybe it's not a perfect replacement, but it is at least something that they could go back to roots with in their team. And it would be nice to see them continue to return to that against GAM here, because that was the split that they won. That was the first time they'd ever really dethroned and won that best of 5 inside of playoffs to take down GAM in that split. So far, they're showing a little bit of that. Like you said, a couple of callbacks, call back to the Rift Herald, call back to some of the ways that they're actually winning through Artemis and things like that.
And on the other side, I also want to talk about GAM a little bit, because, yeah, they're on a 6-game winning streak. They are, almost everyone would agree, they're the best team in the league right now, just on form. There's another interesting attempt, but Carty's on award, so this should not really amount to much. But they've definitely changed as a team, right? They are probably right now our best late-game team-fighting team in the league, which is a little bit weird to say, because that's actually the one archetype of team that has traditionally been able to overcome GAM in all their dominance. But their early game looks much weaker. This is another game where they're sitting at a deficit in the early game against Cerberus of all team, not actually a very strong early game team, at least in this split. And this is something I'm trying to pinpoint where GAM is weaker than before, and I feel like it has to do with Levi's pathing in the early game. Oftentimes we actually see games where Levi doesn't really do much till the team fights. He's still amazing in team fights, don't get me wrong, he's still a really good player, as Rondo P gets caught by Levi.
Yeah, I think just going to die here. They could maybe trade back. Nope, Levi's not going to have nearly enough health taken off of him. Instead, it's just a kill onto Rondo P. But I agree with that sentiment. I love the cover right here, but unfortunately there's just not enough members as Drakthar doesn't find his way into the mid lane whatsoever. It's just going to be the Rift Herald thrown down. Going to get only the 2 plates. They can't flex for anything more as Yato's got more than enough wave clear for this. But like you were saying, like that's an important point to bring back up, is just talking about the fact that this team, they're better at team fighting. I would agree with you. To me, it's the champion pool. When I knew Levi as an aggressive champion, he had this really unique pool that he did things with. And when he was a scaler, he had this really unique pool. And now he's playing a lot of meta things, but he's not doing his own Levi thing, which is what we're missing, I think, more than anything else from the Levi pool, is his own unique champion choices.
And this is maybe more a point for the analyst desk, so maybe if you want to talk about this, you can go back to it. But I'm really wondering why they're not experimenting with AP junglers, because a lot of them are really, really strong right now. If you look at Fiddlesticks, if we look at Carthus, those champions can definitely be played, and Levi is absolutely amazing on those farming junglers. Lilia maybe not so much, he has always struggled with Lilia, but still a little bit curious as to why Levi never really wants to experiment with those AP options. But back into the game, GAM has largely equalized the gold lead, which is fine for Cerberus, I feel like, because they're still scaling nicely. But there's another attempt. That's only the clone, though.
Yeah, nothing crazy about that one. It was actually good foresight from Levi, because I don't think he had vision of that brush. He just realized the red buff was gone, the timer wasn't around, so they knew they were going.
Risky.
Bottom line, there's a bit of a fight. Drakthar didn't get pulled under tower, doesn't have to pop the ultimate for anything defensive. Instead, Cerberus are just going to walk out. They popped the Sivir ultimate, and that's all that they needed. Of course, Yato could have always just jumped the wave and immediately ulted down to bottom side trying to find something, but not to be the case.
Yeah, and we actually saw something there that only Zeri can do, which is very annoying to deal with. She can shoot without targeting, because a Q, well, it's kind of an auto attack, but it's also a skill shot. It's a really weird hybrid thingy, so you can actually just continue to fire for vision, because you can just shoot, and if you see some numbers, or if you see the stacks of your lethal tempo go up, you know, there's something over there. So that's one of the things that Zeri can do that no one else really can, and with a really long range, or as Milky would say, very short range. She actually gets to scout quite a bit.
Yeah, I learned that interaction when I happened to see it was a Zeri fighting against a Graves, and Graves had dropped smoke screen on her, and I'm like, oh wait, that doesn't work. That's right. Another reason Graves is not allowed to ever come back to the meta again in League of Legends, hopefully. As long as Zeri's around, there's always a response to it as an ADC, not having to worry about getting blinded
I think we've
or
seen
anything
enough Graves for the year.
for a lifetime.
Yeah.
Okay. We've said that about Nautilus, but we said that about Leona.
No, I mean,
Yeah,
especially
keep
today
going.
after
Don't say right.
Coded's performance.
Coded's done more than enough damage. As Levi gets jumped on by Drakthar. Drakthar has been focusing on farming, has the level advantage here. They're both kind of posturing around this Rift Herald, which just spawned a second time, 15 minutes into the game. And the thing is, really and honestly, Artemis has pretty much exclusively been dumping every ability and auto attack into every wave. He currently sits at 70 or 171 farm.
Yeah.
He's got like 11 CS a minute at 15 minutes, which is disgusting for how early this is into the game.
Plus
to be
First
able to
Blood,
have
plus
that
at least 2 platings too. So he's very far accelerated.
very strong. Okay. Looks like we're getting another move around from Cerberus who want to fight
One
around
from
this
the other
central
side.
just as fast as possible.
Oh!
Yes, that's going to be fun. Great hook from Ron OP is going to set things up to start with. Ultimate coming out from B is going to be also
No
very
reset.
useful, making sure the fight doesn't go through. As Artemis gets one kill, has to walk out the other side. Now Drakthar back into the front line. He's auto-attacking as much as he can. Kiaya is trying to take over the fight right now as it's Connie from the other side who ends up pulling at least one kill. And that's going to be him going over top of the wall. Going to find Pun as well. As it's 3 kills to the side of GAM. The attempted fight from Cerberus does not work out as GAM takes the win in the fight.
They also walk away with second Rift Herald, which admittedly is not the biggest objective ever, but it's still probably a tower, most likely the mid tower. Let's look at this again, and here we see the difference between a team that tries to do everything for their ADC and the team that ignores their ADC and builds a team around the other members of the team, because Artemis is chunked out of the fight, and yes, Style goes down, but Artemis is basically down as well because he can't participate in the fight. And you have an On, you have a Talia, you have a Jinzhao. They all just exist to buy space for Artemis. Well, and Artemis wasn't there, so obviously you lose the end of the fight. Really get engaged, but I think they need to rethink their approach to team fights, because in the end, it's more important to protect Artemis than to get on top of Style. Artemis should be, he's the president, he's 2-0, he has 2 items. Just stand on top of Artemis and press that Crescent Guard for Drakthar. You're a peel champion now. You don't have to go in.
There's a lot to speak on how a fight like this is supposed to turn out. I do like the fact that GAM has a lot of kind of respect tools to push away Cerberus, at least to start with, right? If Gwen pops ultimate, if Vex pops ultimate, you have to be very wary. Cyclone, ultimate from Renata, a lot of tools that are around for GAM to use to make sure that Cerberus doesn't just get to walk forward with Artemis and press auto attack button and just win the fight outright. So like you said, I feel like there's a lot more creative ways that Cerberus can try to handle the fact that Artemis is going to have to be the load-bearing wall, I suppose, for this team fight that's attempted to be architect by Cerberus inside of a game like this.
There's a level 11 On grouping with his team on my screen, which I absolutely despise. Please go back to top lane. You are not allowed to join your team for the next 3 minutes because there's no objective on the map. Just get to level 14, be useful, actually make use of your unbelievably broken passive, because the rest of your kit is actually quite garbage. So I really do not want to see level 11 on my screen in any team fight situation again. Pun, please just stay there.
He's going to go back and just catch waves. Top tower was broken a bit ago. Kiai was able to be the benefactor and collector of that first tower of the game, so he is already going to be on pretty solid itemization. It looks like could be even rushing into the Rabadon's second item, which is a filthy amount of damage that the Gwen is able to kind of supplant to the rest of this team fight that's already there from GAM, which means that also Kadi doesn't have to build as much damage, and so Zonia's second. I don't even know that the Ludens was necessary. You could have gone something like Everfrost, and maybe you don't have the burst that you do on this champion, but you are the engage bot. You're the threat to Artemis in the backline. Plenty of options all around as GAM is taking control of this game, seemingly against the grain of where Cerberus had been for the vast majority of the start of this one.
Yeah, it's a little disappointing for Cerberus not to be able to continue their early game dominance, their bot lane dominance into the mid game in a cleaner snowball, but not all is lost. Yeah, they're facing a gold deficit and a lot of very strong individual members on the other side, but their composition as a concept is still alive. They still have 2 dragons stacked in their favor already, so a lot of lever and a lot of time to scale. Artemis on 2.5 items already. So it's definitely still going to plan. The plan was interrupted a little bit, but definitely not overthrown. So Cerberus just needs to be calm, play around Artemis, and wait for the Sivir to hit 3 items, because that's definitely going to happen before Style has 3 items. But I actually... Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I actually want to come back to the team fight discussion, because maybe you want to talk about that a little bit more, because GAM used to be this team that always built team compositions with an insane amount of individual agency. Every single champion, every solo laner, every jungler had their own way of carrying a fight. This is kind of going back to that kind of style, which lost them the final against Cerberus, interestingly enough, because they weren't quite as good in front to back. Where do you think they lie right now in terms of strength with that kind of team composition?
I think that they changed their identity enough to play around style in general that they don't have to worry about that nearly as much. There was a time and a place where it felt like everybody was playing. It was almost like GAM was the best solo queue team in the world. Like they had been like they're the best of what is it? What is the 5v5 game mode where you organize like 5-on-5 tournaments? Clash. They were the best Clash team in the world at one point. By a significant margin, because they were all individually talented. They weren't the perfect amalgamation, right? Their compositions led a lot to like either A, they're playing solo queue champions, or they design a team comp specifically around team fighting. But now I feel like they understand their role to help support their damage a little bit better. This game, obviously, style has been punished at least a little bit. But the majority of the split, they've actually looked quite good at playing around style, even in the earlier portions of the split as well. And it's a new kind of addition to this team that has looked a lot different than anything before. And that's what I can appreciate about GAM as the difference between now and winter when Cerberus had beat them, is that their team fighting at least has a little bit more crispness to the ADC's contribution. And in the river, we got to play in the backside. Levi just immediately went in. Kiaya also got pushed out. That's a great Renata ultimate from B to kick things off as Yato and Artemis are just trying to push Kiaya out the backside of the fight.
Autotex needs to come in.
As Kiaya is going to get dropped as fast as possible. That means that Style is going to have to be the primary carry here.
Style, what?
Something. Style flashes in over out of nowhere. Connie's going to get picked off by Yato, and Ron OP is a combination, and somehow GAM gets routed by Cerberus around the third dragon of the game, your way.
And I was so scared for Cerberus, because once again I saw level 12 on, I saw Artemis before, grouping before IE, not actually utilizing all of that advantage he had accrued, because it was 2 items against 2 items and change in the ADC position, so not actually the big power spike they were looking for. Kiaya had a new item, everything was looking GAM, but they fumble the fight, and it's a dragon number 3 for Cerberus, and now there is gonna be IE, there's gonna be level 13, level 14, level 15 for Pun. So suddenly the game turns entirely, and Cerberus is the huge favorite to win this one now.
Okay, so Levi went in first, right? And then dipped out without a second Cyclone really accomplishing anything. And even though B's ultimate was massive, Drakthar bumped them back out. This whole time Kiaya on the carries isn't able to make anything happen. Then Style? Just take a look at Style here. I'm really bad at it. What is that, Style? Like, you're jumping into 3 that even if he gets a kill, it just doesn't matter because the fight is already lost. But that was a disjoint fight from GAM for the first time in a long time.
To me, it's really funny, because to me it looked like the two teams were reading their opposite team composition better than their own team compositions, because GAM focused very hard on Artemis, and Cerberus kind of didn't do much for Artemis. I mean, they bought a lot of time on the other side, but GAM just threw member after member at Artemis, and not perfectly coordinated, so he was able to just walk away over and over again, and even Style tried to assassinate him. I don't think that's the way to go, but the way to go might actually just be go to game 2 now, because that's now a 3-item Artemis. 1 item is going to come in very soon, and the Dragon Soul on the horizon too.
He is on 12 CS a minute. This is not good. 3-item Sivir, Infernal Dragon, Soul Point on the board, ready and raring to go for this team. Like, they have to assassinate him. That's the only play that could come through. That fight was a great indication of like, okay, Kadi couldn't really get in. Kiai was trying, but he wasn't quite able to. Did they just land the ultimate? Kadi just landed, I believe, onto Artemis.
Artemis spell shielded that. He can't follow.
Oh, okay. He can't follow anyway. Yeah, well played from Artemis, because I don't know that they could have engaged it anyway. They had to work through B. They didn't have Kiaya, so I don't know if the fight was going to be fished for anyway. But one way or another, Artemis just gives them no opportunity to do so. As the gold still for Cerberus is really good. They're trading back and forth on the map quite effectively. I think setting up around the Baron buff to eventually start saying, okay, we'll take Baron, we'll start sieging down your structures, we'll take more ambient gold if you want to set up for the next dragon and prevent the soul point from coming through.
And it's getting stronger and stronger. This meatball that is Cerberus' team composition. You have to remember, it's also Sivir helping everyone else to have more movement speed to reposition, and Yado is getting stronger and stronger. 2-0-4. We haven't really had time to talk about Yado, who had a very quiet game, but Talia is not only an early game champion, sure, maybe that's where she excels the most in terms of roaming power, but her late game damage and control is quite hard to deal with, especially if you look at champs like Wukong. He can't just jump through the rocks, he's gonna die. So GAM really has to think hard about coming up with a new method of winning this game. And if we look back at their series against Cerberus, I believe in spring, they happened to be in a game where they were super far behind. They couldn't win team fights. They had no way of actually winning the game. They were almost 10k gold behind, if I remember correctly. But they kept it close through side laning. GAM, the best side laning team in the league by far. So that might just be the only out right now. Put Kiaya into side lane, pressure on the other side with Carti, shadow with Levi, look for a pick or a kill, and try to just go from objective to objective. Yeah, just try to get a tower and an important kill before Dragon spawns, so you buy a little bit more time for style to scale.
This game is... It feels very strange to look at this scoreboard. You're down 1,000 gold, you're up 3 dragons, you got a 318 CS Sivir at 25 minutes into the game. Like, this feels like it's already been won by Cerberus, or that it should be like a 5,000-6,000 gold advantage, and yet GAM has kept it at least close enough for them to have at least a close enough gold approximation to not have to worry. Part of that, I think, is just, again, they've got powerful members across the board. They've got Void Staff coming in now for Kiaya as well, who, like, is going to have that probably by the next objective or close to it by the time that the next objective really rolls around. I think he's backing for it, or in my apologies, that's not Kiaya. Instead, he's elsewhere. But, oh my goodness,
Style? What have you done? You had to use
rub my eye
Ghost.
for a tenth of a second. Oh my goodness.
So let's Ghost down for the next fight, and look at the clock.
Yeah.
30 seconds to the all-important 4th dragon. It's a soul sweep, actually on the line for Cerberus. Still behind in gold, but they want to make the next play. Getting this tower is huge.
Yeah, it's going to be massive. It's going to allow them to push the wave up just a little bit further. As Yato burns the ultimate, doesn't really matter for the team fight. That's not a really big one. Okay, they don't grab the tower, because who knows. But who's to guess? They needed probably one more auto attack, but it doesn't matter, as they also have priority of the river. Again, Style getting pushed out was big for that, as they're going to posture at least. They could still trade objectives too. They still have the option to go up to Baron. It's warded by GAM, but they could at least threaten the trade because they feel superior as long as Artemis doesn't get jumped on in the team fight.
And the longer the game goes on, it's more and more a fight between Artemis and Kiaya on the other side, who's in an insanely strong position. Yeah, here we go.
Immediately into Kani. Ultimate from B is way too far back to end up actually getting anything. Levi gets ripped apart on the front line, and Rano, he got out. Everything in the kitchen sink so far. Yato, or my apologies, Kani goes in on punt. It just gets nothing. Just gets absolutely nothing. No one is able to accomplish anything right now. It feels like GAM has wasted every tool at the front end of this fight. Kiai is going to try to wrap around as best he can to get some kind of pressure onto Artemis, but the Infernal Dragon is
going
definitely
lower.
Levi has to find a steal, as they're going to turn. Kiai is going to throw some
Kiai damage
into everything else, as that's going to be more damage across. He's sitting behind everybody, but they're able to kill enough members. That's huge from Kiai to be able to start things off. The Dragon is taken. Pun is going to let Artemis continue to walk forward, as that's a triple kill traded back. Cerberus able to find at least some kind of response of a fight coming out here. Kiaya putting the team on his back, getting 3 kills and winning them the Dragon in exchange for Artemis being able to match, getting quite a bit more gold into the Sivir.
Double, triple kill. It's all about Kiaya against Artemis. The unlikely 1v1, I guess, on the Rift, because honestly, it's not that unlikely. We all know Artemis is the carry for Cerberus. It always has been, has gotten an MVP, and guess what? Kiaya was the last MVP. It's actually the fight of the 2 last MVPs on our screen right now. This is such a good, well-coordinated re-engage. Finally, GAM found their communication again, because Kiaya buys so much space and also just pushes everyone away from the Dragon. Dragon down to almost 3k HP, but now they can't continue, and the Dragon actually resets here. Look at that AoE damage. It's devastating. And honestly, on the other side, Artemis just doesn't have the same amount of AoE damage at the same speed as Kiaya. They need to kite Kiaya and go from him. They can't ignore him like this.
It was huge because Artemis was playing very defensively, as I think he needs to, right, inside of a fight. He doesn't want to get caught up in all that damage that Kiaya has got. But the trade-off is, of course, that Artemis isn't attacking all the members of the team at once. Like you said, if you're relying on the Ricochet is going to have damage, but it's not going to be like quite as much as just like flat autoing members. And so Artemis has a bunch of through damage, but when the only person you can hit is Kiaya, and it's not necessarily bouncing to every member of the team, like you said, the through damage just isn't there from the Sivir. as this primary carry. Does have Guardian Angel now, so I think you can posture a lot more aggressively in fights as Artemis. Like that's at least one potential. Does that change the way this game plays out? Can Artemis now run forward with basically reckless abandon as soon as the as soon as the Renata ultimate is down and really make aggressive movements towards GAM's composition?
I mean, I don't actually think it changes too much. It gives them a little bit more time to actually protect Artemis. He can't get one shot now, which is a good thing for them, definitely. But to me, it's all about Drakthar and trying to keep Kiaya awake, trying to slow Kiaya down, knock him up, buy time so Kiaya can't devastate your backline like you did last time. Or we just run at Baron, because why not?
Okay, it's about half health right now. The team fight is actually getting pushed. And Branobi hooks in, misses, and
Artemis, no!
Very quickly. That's a delivery of Cody right into the middle of the team. He's gonna find one. Almost goes down himself as Artemis is almost popped out of the Guardian Angel style, able to bring him down. And the rest of the team is too far back. Artemis is gonna be able to survive. He's gonna go down, and GAM is gonna win the fight around the Baron buff really, really handily as they find the engagement from a very far distance away. Cerberus desperately looking for a fight to be able to take this Baron, but they're going to lose their ability to do so very quickly as GAM regains control of the game.
And this time they actually found the way onto the backline and everyone crammed up around the Baron. That's exactly where you don't want to be. You want an open field. You want to have maneuverability with all your super fast champions. You're playing Sivir and Talia with Ghost, but let's take another look. Cardi's ultimate somehow was not denied this time by the spell shield. The spell shield is split second too late. That might have just cost them the entire game there. If the spell shield is in time, Cardi can't follow in. Artemis can reposition. They probably get to fight another. Maybe they don't win, but it's definitely a closer fight. And then Artemis dies. He loses GA as well. That's a lot of wasted money on the side of Artemis. And suddenly, GAM in a strong position. They are still facing that soul point up in 1.5 minutes, but can Cerberus even establish any semblance of control to get close to the soul?
A couple of big things also. We noticed, or at least I think our devs talked a little bit about the interaction between Talia E and Vex ultimate. And actually, the rocks get broken, but they don't stun because she's untargetable. And right there, the E from Yato was used in an attempt to push off Kadi from actually entering the fight, and the stun didn't go through, obviously, which means Kadi got delivered. But that was a big reason why, like, Levi and Kiaya and Style could easily dash and start to put themselves in better position into the Baron Pit area, because that E was not used in the direction of the big team. They were actually used to zone off Kadi, which is interesting because, again, Yato has a lot of damage himself, sitting on now 3 items with some pen, with everything else. Has to be more conscious about the usage of things, as Kiaya is just going to step in with the Baron buff, going to close off bottom tower. Kiaya is such a menace, and it's such a raid boss inside a game like this. Almost has Rabadon, which means he is basically full assassin to worry about inside of this game for Cerberus.
It's getting scarier and scarier. This scissor lady is she's gonna patch everyone up. But I feel like Cerberus lost a little bit of their opportunity to get this dragon. They completely conceded dragon positioning for no apparent reason. I feel like they could have definitely fought back a little bit harder against this Baron push, because they gave GAM a free tower with the Baron and then also way into Dragon, so now it's another 5 minutes left to wait for their big prize, and still not anywhere closer to winning this game. In the meantime, Style has suddenly completed 4 items, getting dominated by Artemis the whole game, but now they are on item parity, and we know all about Zeri late game, so it's getting dicier.
Okay. So Sivir did just complete Bloodthirster. There is a pretty big useful tool there for the side of Cerberus that now Sustain is going to be available when the Guardian Angel backup. It's going to be difficult to actually manage. The other portion of this, I will push back slightly on the point before. I think if they go for Dragon and they go for a fight and they lose the game.
That's fair.
Whereas the game is not lost right now, they still have the ability to bank on Artemis. So maybe they just weren't willing to kind of bid the farm quite yet, so to speak, on that Dragon play, because they have 2 more dragons to play with, basically. They can pick the optimal fight for themselves when the time comes to try to get people onto itemization. Now, that being said, Drakthar currently sits at, 1 completed item?
At least it's an on item.
He's on, support itemization. Yeah, it is an on item, but goodness gracious, please get some gold into one of your frontliners for the love of, finish an item, please. He's got, 4 components.
Ceaseless Hunger, I believe it's called.
Yeah,
He's
Ceaseless
definitely
Hunger.
not ceaselessly hungry for items this game, unfortunately for his
No.
team, because he's barely more than a support at this point. To be honest, his role in the game is kind of akin to a support. He just needs to stand on top of Artemis, plant his feet there, and just say, "No, Kiaya, you shall not pass." He's gonna die in 2 seconds looking at Artemis and at Kiaya's itemization, but that doesn't really matter, because as long as he buys space and time for Artemis, everything is fine.
Absolutely.
They
Okay,
actually
here's
gave him the whole wave. That's interesting. He probably is close to an item. They gave him the whole wave. Another item is gonna go, well, not a long way, but at least a little bit more towards being a useful part of the team.
Okay, so on one hand, I understand that you really want magic resist, and Force of Nature is probably not a bad idea for like some movement speed. I feel like it might be better to go Abyssal here, just so that you can dip for some additional damage onto Yato by pulling magic resist off members, and you're dying anyway. Like, you're not gonna, you aren't the target for the magic dealers, and also you are gonna die anyway, so it doesn't matter. So to me, I think you just want more damage. That's my opinion on the matter. I have this really quick because we're in a bit of a lull state. We're just waiting for objectives to pop up. Do you know what the upgraded Crown of the Shattered is called?
That's the only one I'm not so sure about from the items right now. I don't think I know the crown.
I don't know if it's Caesura or Caesura, but I don't know what it means either. But yeah, that's what the crown is called. So
Yeah, it's like the hat.
Mhm.
The hat. Oh, what do we call it? The hat of Caesar. So it's a Caesar. It makes you a Caesar. I guess.
Okay.
I think
that's
it's
pretty
like,
neat.
the intention behind the name. Yeah, that's very nice.
That's pretty cool.
Speaking of which, Yado should be sitting at something like 500 AP right now, so we can't ignore him in the next fight.
No, he's strong.
He's gonna be quite strong as well. And I've seen some Q cooldowns on Talia in the late game. It is not a cooldown. Like, you can't call it a cooldown. It's basically up all the time. It's
Might as well be an auto
attack.
Yeah, I always consider her a DPS champion in the late game just because she can always throw out rocks. But again, the important part of the kit here, at least in my opinion, is the usage of that E to prevent Levi and Style from just kind of haphazardly walking into the midst of the fight. That's your number one deterrent for making sure those two champions can't just walk in and get on top of Artemis and do absolutely nothing else, alongside, of course, Drakthar and Pun being in that availability as well. So we're paying attention to this. Baron is going to be up in about 10 seconds. Everyone had only just reset on Cerberus. I think with Vision, that would have been an easy enough play for GAM, but they didn't know any of that was actually the case, so they're just kind of sitting around in the topside river. Dragon's also available in 1 minute, so the timer has to be very careful here from both teams, because if you take Baron, the other team is going to get Dragon, and that's a bad situation, I think, for both these teams at this point in the game. And so it's really, really difficult to find a timer to really go on to
Baron. They want to
Dragon. If you're going to try to look on a B, they're not going to find him. Because it's a nice little flash away. B's not going to have to worry about that, but can't put your ultimate down as easily as Cotty. Also potentially picked off. Also has to flash, as the ultimate fishing coming out from Cerberus actually yields quite a bit right here. If they can wait for those cooldowns, that's going to be Levi. He jumps immediately.
Cotty miss!
From Vex is going to miss, as Levi's going to be there. He's going to Cyclone Flash into the rest of the team just as fast as possible. Over the wall, he's going to jump on Artemis, and he's going to assassinate Artemis immediately inside of this one. Yano's putting out
Oh my god!
But Sivir is erased from the game, and that means that Cerberus has lost the fight. There is absolutely nothing left for them to accomplish, as that means Cerberus loses the game. GAM, after losing like 5 cooldowns and Levi almost getting picked off, is able to find the right angle to put the damage into the right member, and GAM will win game number 1.
And I think here we can see the difference between Winter GAM and Summer GAM. They might not quite be as dominant in the early game, but they worked on their team fighting. They can now actually stand up to Artemis' team. Not only stand up, completely overwhelm them. 5-for-0 ace.